Have you ever looked at a test score or a school report and felt a quiet sense of failure? Like no matter how hard you try, you're always being measured by a system that doesn't really see you. Maybe you've been told you're not smart because you struggle with numbers or freeze in exams. But deep down, you know there's more to you, more than what any grade or label could define. In a world obsessed with ranking minds, we often forget that intelligence isn't one straight line, it's a landscape. And sometimes, the most brilliant parts of you don't show up in the places others are looking. Maybe you read emotions with surgical precision. Maybe your body understands rhythm, space, or motion in ways you can't explain. Maybe your mind finds patterns where others only see chaos. True intelligence isn't about impressing the world. It's about understanding yourself and honoring the way your mind was built to move through this life. And once you see it clearly, you stop trying to fit into someone else's idea of smart. You start mastering your own. So today, let's look deeper, not just at the 9 types of intelligence, but at the quiet truth they reveal. The kind that helps you outsmart not others, but your own doubt. Settle in. You might just see yourself differently by the end. Number 1. Wisdom through nature. Have you ever walked through a forest and felt like the trees were speaking to you? Not in words, but in presence, in patterns, in quiet signals that others miss. Maybe you've always noticed the way birds move before the weather shifts, or how different shades of green mark the health of the land. It's not just observation. It's something older, something instinctive, as if your senses were sharpened not by books, but by earth, wind, and sky. The Stoics taught us to live in accordance with nature, not just to admire it, but to understand our place within it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Adapt yourself to the environment in which your lot has been cast, and show true love to the fellow creatures with whom destiny has surrounded you." For some, that wisdom runs in the blood. You don't just adapt to nature. You read it, you feel it, you move with it like a silent ally. You're not distracted by the noise of cities or the vanity of crowds. You hear the deeper rhythm. You know when to wait, when to act, and when to disappear. There's a kind of intelligence that doesn't scream its presence in a room. It doesn't hold degrees or titles. It's the intelligence of the warrior who survives, not by brute force, but by sensing the wind change before the storm comes. Take the story of a shepherd in the highlands. Let's call him Elias. He never went to school, could barely write his name. But he knew the migration path of every bird in the valley, could predict a drought by watching how the insects moved at dusk, and once saved his entire village by warning them of an incoming landslide days before it happened. When they asked how he knew, he simply said, "The ground was quieter than usual. It was listening too closely." That kind of knowing is not superstition, it's deep alignment. Naturalist intelligence is the gift of being attuned to the subtle truths around you, the ones no one teaches, but everyone depends on. In a Stoic sense, it's the ability to live as part of nature rather than above it, to sense, to protect, and to move in harmony with the world, not against it. In modern life, that might look like the gardener who heals through soil, the hiker who finds peace where others find discomfort, or the conservationist who defends the voiceless forest with the clarity of one who knows its soul. If this speaks to you, then your power lies not in controlling nature, but in respecting it, and knowing that truth isn't always found in words, but in the way a leaf bends under rain, or how silence falls before dawn. This intelligence cannot be taught, only remembered. And if you carry it, you carry the wisdom of thousands before you. The world might call you simple, but the Stoics would call you rare, because you live by instinct, not impulse. You obey something older than logic, the quiet laws of life itself. So before we move on, ask yourself this: do I listen only to people, or do I also listen to the world? Because sometimes the earth teaches what no teacher ever could. And if you've ever felt at home under an open sky more than in any building, this may be your kind of brilliance. Now, let's continue and uncover the next form of intelligence, one that speaks through words, but holds a power much deeper. Number 2, hearing the hidden harmony. Have you ever felt something stir inside you the moment a melody hits the air? Like your breath paused, your chest opened, and for a second it was as if someone else had spoken your soul's language without ever using words. Music doesn't need permission to move us. It sneaks past thought and settles into something deeper, where memory, emotion, and spirit live. And for some, that connection isn't occasional. It's constant. It's how they move through the world. The Stoics spoke often of harmony, not just in sound, but in life. Seneca once said, "Life is like a play. It's not the length, but the performance that matters." A person gifted with musical intelligence performs life with an attunement others don't always understand. They sense rhythm in silence, hear tone in tension, and feel the unseen structure behind what looks chaotic. Where others hear noise, they hear truth. And it doesn't always begin on a stage. Picture a boy named Lucian, the son of a stonemason growing up in a quiet village. No formal training, no expensive lessons, but every evening after the day's labor, he'd carve flutes out of scrap wood and play under the stars, not because anyone told him to, but because when he played, he understood things that no one ever taught. One night, during a winter storm, he composed a tune that made his grieving mother cry, not because of its sadness, but because it somehow carried the warmth of the father they had just buried. That's what music can do when guided by a soul in tune with the invisible. To possess musical intelligence isn't merely about instruments or technique. It's the ability to mirror life's tempo, to know when to pause, when to rise, when to let silence say more than sound. In a Stoic sense, it is a kind of inner tuning, where you've aligned your senses so precisely that you respond to the world like an instrument played by the gods. You don't control music. You let it pass through you. Like the warrior who listens more than he speaks, you understand that rhythm is not performance, it's perception. People with this gift often go unnoticed, tapping rhythms on desks, humming patterns under their breath, rearranging chaos into cadence. But their power is real. When they speak with timing. When they move, it flows. And when they connect with others, it feels less like conversation and more like composition. You may not always see their greatness in numbers or logic, but give them a moment with sound, and they will show you an intelligence that cannot be measured, only felt. So if you've ever lost track of time while composing, if you can recall tunes with effortless clarity, or if a single note once brought you to tears, know this: your intelligence is not rare, it is sacred. You were born not just to hear sound, but to interpret its meaning. And in a world full of noise, that is no small thing. Music may not make you louder, but it will make you timeless. Let's move forward now to another form of intelligence, one that lives not in the ears, but in the heart's ability to feel what others cannot say. Number 3, the logic behind chaos. Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, not because of worry, but because your mind won't stop chasing patterns, seeking order, tracing cause and effect, asking not just what, but why and how and what happens next? For some, life feels like a riddle meant to be solved, not endured. They don't fear complexity, they crave it, not for control, but for clarity. The Stoics understood the power of structured thought. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul, especially when he has such thoughts that by looking into them he is immediately in perfect tranquility." Those thoughts he refers to, orderly, logical, unclouded by impulse, are the very ground on which this kind of intelligence stands. If this speaks to you, you likely have the kind of mind that sees the invisible framework of reality. When others hear noise, you hear a code behind it. When they react, you calculate. You may have been the child who questioned the rules of a game instead of just playing it, who took apart clocks not to destroy them, but to understand how time was kept. It wasn't rebellion, it was curiosity guided by structure. There's a story of a boy named Thales, named after the ancient philosopher. While others played in the fields, he built models of water systems to figure out how rivers carved valleys. He would trap ants in glass jars and watch them find exits, taking notes on their choices. One day, when his village's crops failed, it was Thales who calculated that the issue wasn't the soil, it was the direction of irrigation. He redirected the flow. That year, they survived what could have been a famine. He didn't need a title. His clarity was his strength. This intelligence is not cold, despite what people think. It is disciplined. It sees through distraction and moves toward precision. Strategy games, formulas, experiments, these aren't just hobbies, they're training grounds. In the Stoic tradition, they represent logos, the rational principle that governs the universe. You are drawn to truth like a compass finds north, and you trust reason not as a weapon, but as a torch. If you resonate with this, know that your gift isn't about being right. It's about being steady. The world often rewards the loudest voice, but you aren't here to impress. You're here to understand. And understanding, when rooted in virtue, becomes one of the greatest tools a warrior can possess. Because in a world ruled by chaos and impulse, the one who sees the structure holds the power to rebuild it. So if you've ever solved a problem others walked away from, if you see formulas in the way people argue or find beauty in a clean equation, this may be your form of brilliance. Not loud, not flashy, just precise. And in that precision, you wield a kind of quiet dominance. One that doesn't need recognition, only alignment with what is true. Now let's shift from calculation to connection and explore a different form of intelligence, one that doesn't seek to measure the world, but to feel it. Number 4, reading the human heart. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly sensed the unspoken tension? Not a word exchanged, but something in the air tells you who's hiding anger, who's pretending to smile, and who's on the verge of breaking. You don't just hear what people say, you feel what they mean. While others listen to words, you read between them. And sometimes that awareness feels more like a weight than a gift. In Stoicism, we're reminded that a wise person does not seek to control others, but to understand them. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." For those with interpersonal intelligence, that isn't just a quote, it's how they live. They observe, they absorb, and they sense what others overlook. They are the quiet readers of the human heart, not to manipulate, but to harmonize. Consider a girl named Isadora. She wasn't the loudest in the classroom, nor the top of her class. But when a student was hurting, she noticed. When the teacher's voice trembled with hidden exhaustion, she stayed after class just to ask how they were. One winter, a boy named Matteo sat alone for weeks. Others avoided him because he snapped at anyone who came close. But Isadora brought him a notebook, not to fix him, but to say, "I see you." By spring, he was laughing again. She didn't study human behavior. She simply paid attention. And that changed everything. If you recognize yourself in this, you may carry a rare kind of intelligence, the ability to move gently through crowded hearts and unspoken wounds. You are a warrior, not of the sword, but of connection. While others try to win with force, you win by understanding. You see through masks, not to expose others, but to guide them back to truth. In the Stoic worldview, this form of clarity is a discipline of attention. You don't control people, you accept what they reveal and what they hide. You remain present in the storm of their emotions without losing yourself in it. That balance, that deep-centered awareness, is what gives your presence weight. People trust you, even when they don't know why, because you make them feel seen. This form of intelligence doesn't always get trophies. It doesn't show up on paper, but it holds the power to restore dignity, rebuild trust, and soften pain without saying a word. In a divided world, that might be the greatest gift of all. So, if you've ever been the person others confide in, if you've felt exhausted by the emotions you carry for those around you, remember, your empathy isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's the strength to stay soft in a world that teaches hardness. And that strength is needed now more than ever. If this part resonated with you, type I see in the comments. It's a small way to honor the gift you carry. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing. This journey into the self is only just beginning. Let's now explore another form of inner clarity, one that isn't about others, but about the rich and often unspoken landscape within. Number 5. Power in silent empathy. Have you ever stood in silence with someone and somehow felt their whole world unraveling without a single word spoken, or watched a smile fade mid-sentence and known deep in your bones that something wasn't right? This isn't magic. It's not guesswork. It's a quiet form of intelligence that doesn't shout. It listens, it senses, it understands. The Stoics believed that our ability to live wisely begins not with mastering others, but with understanding them. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?" This kind of reflection requires the ability to see not just through the eyes of others, but to feel with their skin. That's the heart of interpersonal intelligence, not manipulation, not performance, but presence. If you carry this gift, you're likely the person others turn to when the weight of their lives becomes too much. You feel what's left unsaid. You hold space, not because you've been trained, but because you instinctively know what someone needs before they can ask. You don't flinch at raw emotions. You sit with them, and in doing so, you help others find clarity. There's a story of a young man named Raphael. He worked at a coffee stand tucked between two office towers. Day after day, he handed out cups of coffee with a quiet smile. But he noticed everything: the executive who always trembled slightly as she paid, the janitor who smiled too wide to hide the sadness behind his eyes. One morning, a customer snapped at him over a simple mistake. But instead of reacting, Raphael asked gently, "Rough morning?" The man froze, then sighed and admitted he'd just come from the hospital. His mother hadn't made it. That moment didn't require grand wisdom, just human depth. Just someone who could see without judging. This intelligence is not about charm. It's not about winning people over. It's about reading the current beneath the surface, about having the strength to stay steady when others are swept up in chaos. And that strength is not loud. It is humble, stoic. A warrior of this kind walks into a room and softens the air, not because they demand attention, but because they offer presence. To truly understand people is to recognize the contradictions they carry and not flee from them. It's to see that even cruelty often masks fear, that anger can be grief wearing armor. And still, you choose to see clearly. You choose compassion without becoming naive. That is a rare power. One the world desperately needs, even if it rarely acknowledges it. So if you've ever been told you're too sensitive or that you feel too much, perhaps it's time to stop seeing that as a flaw. It is a form of strength disguised as softness. It's what allows you to walk through someone else's pain without losing yourself. And in that quiet walk, you bring a kind of healing that few ever learn to offer. Let's continue, because just as some are gifted in understanding others, there are those whose greatest wisdom lies in understanding themselves. Number 6. Truth in motion. Have you ever felt more at peace when you're in motion than when you're still? Like your truest thoughts don't arrive through words, but through movement, through muscle memory, timing, and touch. While the world sits and thinks, you rise and act. For some, truth doesn't live in the intellect alone. It lives in the body that carries it. The Stoics didn't separate mind and body. They trained both, disciplined both, respected both. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That wasn't just philosophy, it was physical. It was about meeting resistance not in theory, but in sweat, fatigue, and effort. And those with this form of intelligence understand that discipline isn't abstract. It's practiced through repetition, through motion, through mastery of the vessel they've been given. Imagine a man named Cassian, not a scholar, not a philosopher by title, but a blacksmith. Day after day he shaped metal in the heat of his forge. His rhythm, his grip, his breath, they worked in silent harmony. When the village bridge collapsed in a storm, it was Cassian who rebuilt it, not with calculations, but with his body's knowing where to balance weight, where to reinforce structure. He didn't explain how he knew. He simply said, "I trust what my hands remember." To be gifted in bodily kinesthetic intelligence is to understand that thought isn't limited to the mind. There is a deeper awareness, a wisdom that lives in muscle, in reflex, in stance. You catch the ball before you can name the trajectory. You move with such timing and coordination that others call it talent, but you know it's not luck. It's years of being present, of aligning motion with intention. It's what the Stoics would call living in full harmony with your nature. The world tends to admire those who sit still and speak well, but you are the kind of warrior who speaks through movement. You don't just talk about courage, you run toward the fire. You don't theorize balance, you perform it, whether on a tightrope, a field, a stage, or an operating table. In every step, your body says what your mind has already accepted, that excellence is built not by thought alone, but by the unbreakable union of thought and action. You may not always be the one to write the plan, but you are the one who brings it to life. You're the hands behind the vision, the body that shows others what discipline looks like in form, not just in word. And when life demands more of you, you don't withdraw. You move, you lift, you execute. So if the world has ever tried to confine you to a desk when your instincts needed movement, know this. Your brilliance lies not in resisting your nature, but in refining it. To master the body is to master a kind of wisdom the Stoics deeply respected. It's proof that action, when deliberate and precise, is a form of truth no words can match. Let us now turn inward to explore another form of strength, one found not in what you express outwardly, but in the silent conversation you hold within yourself. Number 7. The warrior of words. Have you ever felt the weight of a single word linger in your chest long after it was spoken, or found yourself caught in a sentence, not because of its length, but because it captured something you thought no one else could name? For those who carry this form of intelligence, language is not a tool, it's a landscape. Every syllable holds power, every pause a meaning. The Stoics were careful with words. Epictetus warned, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do, but even before action comes speech, and before speech, thought." The person with linguistic intelligence doesn't just speak well, they think with precision. They understand that language, at its best, reveals the soul, and at its worst, distorts the truth. If this is your path, you likely move through life in a stream of internal dialogue. You narrate your observations. You refine your thoughts before they reach your lips. And when you write, it's not just to inform, but to uncover, to bring form to what's been stirring in the silence. Words, to you, are living things. They can heal or harm, they can confuse or clarify, but in the right hands, they liberate. There's a tale of a woman named Callia who lived in a small port city. She never left her village, yet through books and letters, she saw the world more clearly than most who had walked it. She taught herself 5 languages, not to impress anyone, but to understand the stories carried on ships and in the letters that washed up with the tide. When war reached their shores, she became the voice of the town. Not a soldier, not a leader, just someone who knew how to speak what others felt but could not say. Her words held the line when swords could not. To speak clearly is to think clearly, and to think clearly is to live deliberately. Linguistic intelligence isn't about eloquence for its own sake. It's about uncovering what matters. You don't just enjoy poetry or debate or learning new languages. You feel the architecture of ideas behind them. You know how a word can open someone's heart or shut it forever. You are the warrior of articulation. In a time when language is used to confuse, you choose to illuminate. You don't fear silence because you've made peace with it. You write because you must. Because something in you demands that truth be named, not hidden. You edit, not to impress, but to purify. Because for you, every line is a mirror, and it must reflect what's real. So if this speaks to you, know that your voice, your pen, your choice of words, these are your instruments of impact. And in a world overflowing with noise, your clarity is a form of courage. Let's now move from the world of speech into something quieter, something often overlooked, the inner space where awareness begins not with sound, but with stillness. Number 8, master of the inner world. Have you ever felt like your silence says more than your words ever could? Like even in a room full of noise, your real conversation is happening inside, with yourself. For some, the deepest connection they have is not with the world outside, but with the world within. And that world, when cultivated with discipline and clarity, becomes their strongest fortress. The Stoics placed immense value on self-awareness. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look there." This wasn't poetic sentiment, it was survival. A call to return inward before reacting outward. A practice of seeing oneself clearly, stripping away illusion, and aligning with the truth that sits beneath all passing moods. If you carry intrapersonal intelligence, then you know what it means to sit with your own thoughts without fleeing from them. You reflect not to overthink, but to refine. You are your own mentor, your own challenger, and your own compass. You don't wait for external approval to adjust your direction. You recognize your strengths without arrogance, your weaknesses without shame. And this quiet precision is what sets you apart. There's a man named Elia who lived in a mountain village rarely visited by strangers. He spoke little, observed much, and spent hours walking the ridgeline alone. Some thought him cold, others thought him strange. But when hardship hit the village, famine, division, fear, it was Elia who people turned to. Not because he had all the answers, but because he had stability. He had spent years mastering the storms within, so the outer chaos didn't shake him, and in his calm, others found courage. This form of intelligence doesn't look impressive in a crowd. It doesn't dominate conversations or win applause, but its power is undeniable. You are the one who knows how to pause before speaking, to check your motives before moving, to ask yourself whether your desires are aligned with virtue or vanity. You don't chase goals just because the world tells you to. You pursue what matters, quietly, steadily, without spectacle. To live this way requires discipline, and discipline, as the Stoics taught, is freedom. You've likely built rituals around your habits, spoken truths to yourself that others aren't ready to hear, and held yourself to a higher standard, not out of pride, but out of purpose. You understand that self-mastery is not a destination, but a practice. Every day you sharpen your mind, not for show, but for strength, like a warrior who trains not for battle, but for restraint. If this is you, then you walk a rare path, one that doesn't need noise to feel alive, one that trusts the voice inside over the echo of the crowd. And in that solitude, you find not isolation, but clarity. Now, let's move to the final form of intelligence, a gift that expands beyond the self and connects us to something much greater, a truth not spoken in words or even thought, but felt through wonder. Number 9. Architect of the invisible. Have you ever walked into an unfamiliar place and instinctively understood its shape before your eyes had fully adjusted? Or looked up at a ceiling, a skyline, or a map, and not just seen it, but felt how all the pieces fit together in your mind like a living blueprint? Some people read books, others read space. And for those gifted with spatial intelligence, the world reveals itself not in paragraphs, but in depth, distance, and form. In Stoic practice, perception is the beginning of wisdom. Epictetus taught, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our interpretations of them. But what if your interpretation is visual? What if you've always grasped the structure of things before anyone else even noticed their form? Then your sight is not just physical, it's philosophical. You don't just see, you comprehend in layers, in patterns, in possibilities. To possess spatial intelligence is to dwell in a three-dimensional kind of thought. You picture how things could be, not just how they are. When others stare at the surface, you rotate the world inside your mind. And often, you don't need words to understand. Your clarity arrives in images, in imagined angles, in reconstructed realities. What takes others 1,000 sentences you see in one silent vision. There's a story of a boy named Leontius who lived near the sea. From a young age, he would spend hours drawing ship sails, not just their shape, but how they moved with the wind. He'd sketch buildings, not as they were, but how they could be rebuilt after storms. One day, when a traveling merchant's cart collapsed on a sharp bend, everyone scrambled to help. But it was Leontius who reimagined the turn in his head, suggested a slight regrading of the road, and sketched a bridge design in the sand. Years later, that sketch became the foundation of the region's trade route. He had no title, no education in architecture, only a gift for seeing space not as it is, but as it longs to become. This kind of intelligence doesn't always draw attention early in life. In fact, many who carry it are mislabeled as dreamers, their heads tilted to the sky, their notebooks filled with lines, colors, and imagined corridors. But in truth, they are architects of vision, warriors of form. While others speak of progress, they design it in silence, in sketches, in structure. The Stoics believe that wisdom is living according to nature. For those with spatial intelligence, that nature is built. You are drawn to harmony and design, to symmetry and chaos, to the hidden geometry of life itself. Whether through sculpture, painting, piloting, sailing, or engineering, you are constantly orienting, finding direction not just on a compass, but in every form of complexity. Your mind is a compass. Your thoughts draw maps others didn't even know existed. You may not memorize long passages, you may forget dates or names, but show you the shape of a room once, and you'll remember every detail. Give you a problem, and you'll break it into parts. Visualize the angles, and quietly construct the solution. You think in architecture. You move in vision. And even when others are uncertain, you can close your eyes and still find your way. Your gift is not just imagination. It's transformation. You take what is abstract and make it concrete, what is chaotic and make it aligned. Your intelligence doesn't compete, it composes. It organizes the scattered and gives shape to the formless. And maybe that's what the Stoics would admire most in you. Because to take the raw material of the world and order it without force, without pride, is to live wisely. It is to serve something beyond yourself, to build quietly what others only dream of. So if you've ever felt more alive with a pencil in your hand, a landscape before you, or a puzzle waiting to be solved, know that your brilliance lies in vision. You are the one who sees what hasn't yet taken form. You bring truth into the visible. You make clarity concrete. And that is where this journey through intelligence ends, not with noise, but with structure. Not with explanation, but with the silent, unseen skill of building meaning into space. Whatever your gift may be, whether it speaks, moves, listens, calculates, feels, or envisions, let it serve your nature. Let it sharpen your discipline. Let it lead you closer to the life only you can shape. So, which kind of intelligence felt like home to you? Which one reflected the way your mind moves through the world when no one's watching? Sometimes all it takes is one quiet realization to see yourself with new eyes, not as someone who doesn't fit the system, but as someone who was never meant to be measured by it in the first place. If one of these forms of intelligence spoke to something deep inside you, take a moment to honor it. Not by proving anything to others, but by recognizing what has always been true about you. Your mind doesn't need to be compared, it needs to be understood. Let us know with a simple phrase in the comments. My mind speaks. It could be your way of claiming what's always been yours. And if this journey helped you reflect or made you feel seen in some way, consider subscribing. Not because you have to, but because there's more ahead. More truths worth uncovering, more strength worth remembering. You are not behind. You are not broken. You're simply wired for something this world may not always understand, but you do. And the more you live in alignment with that, the more you begin to outsmart not others, but the old doubts that once held you back. We'll be here for the next step. Until then, trust your design. It's wiser than you think.